The single dad sat alone at the wedding until a woman stood and said, "Look at me. Do you remember what you told me in this garden a year ago?" Clara asked, moonlight reflecting in her eyes as they stood by the fountain. "You said you chose invisibility after Maya's mother left. That you stayed quiet and controlled everything because you were afraid life would fall apart again." Elias nodded, his heart racing. "I remember. I think we both did that," she whispered. "Choose to become smaller, less visible, to protect ourselves from pain." Her fingers trembled as they intertwined with his. But the thing about invisibility is that no one can love what they can't see. The weight of the small velvet box in his pocket suddenly felt like an anchor, grounding him to this moment, to this woman who had refused to let him disappear. "And now?" he asked, his voice barely audible above the fountain's gentle flow. Clara's eyes held his, unwavering. "Now I think I'm ready. For the ring. For the future. For everything. Have you ever felt like a ghost among the living? Like you've become so good at fading into the background that you're not sure you know how to be visible anymore? What would it take for someone who's spent half their life hiding to finally be seen? If you've ever felt invisible in a crowded room, give this video a like and join me as we discover how one conversation can transform a life forever. Welcome to Mr. Stephen Love Stories. I'm thrilled to have you here, and if you're new, please hit that subscribe button to help our channel grow. We'd also love to know where in the world you're watching from, so drop your location in the comments below. Now, let's begin this story of a man who forgot how to be seen, and the woman who refused to let him disappear. The wedding invitation had arrived on a Tuesday, crisp white envelope with gold embossing that felt almost accusatory in its elegance. Elias had nearly thrown it away unopened. Social gatherings were Maya's domain, not his. For 17 years, he'd constructed his life around practical necessities: work, home, Maya's needs. "Dad, it's from Jonah." Maya had appeared at his elbow, her dark eyes, so like his own, following the path of the envelope toward the trash. At 17, Maya possessed an emotional intelligence that sometimes made Elias wonder which of them was the parent. "You should open it. Jonah Blake." The name conjured memories of late nights in college dorm rooms, of ambitious plans sketched on napkins, of the last person who'd truly known Elias before he'd become a father and forgotten how to be anything else. "It's probably a wedding invitation," Elias said dismissively. "Jonah mentioned he was engaged when we ran into each other last year." Maya plucked the envelope from his hand. "Then you should go." "I don't do weddings." "You don't do anything." There was no accusation in her tone, only a gentle observation that cut deeper than anger ever could. "When was the last time you went somewhere that wasn't work, the grocery store, or one of my school events?" Elias busied himself with the stack of mail. "I'm busy." "You're hiding." Maya set the envelope on the counter between them. "You taught me how to stand," she said, her wise eyes seeing too much. "You never learned how to sit where people can see you." The words lingered in the kitchen long after Maya had disappeared upstairs to study. By Thursday, he'd RSVP'd with a reluctant check in the attending box. Now, sitting at table 9, clearly the overflow table for distant acquaintances and obligatory invites, Elias regretted that moment of weakness. The ceremony had been beautiful, he supposed, in the way that all weddings were. He'd done his duty. He'd watched his old friend exchange vows with his radiant bride, signed the guest book, even managed a quick congratulations during the receiving line. Surely that was enough. The chicken or the fish? Elias looked up to find a woman sliding into the empty seat beside him. She wore a deep blue dress that caught the light when she moved, and a wry smile that matched her tone. "I'm sorry. I'm betting you're silently calculating how soon you can escape without seeming rude." Her smile deepened. "So I'm offering a distraction. Chicken or fish? Which wedding dinner disappointment did you select?" Despite himself, Elias felt the corner of his mouth twitch upward. "Chicken." Though I'm not particularly optimistic. Wise choice. Wedding fish is always a gamble. She extended her hand. Clara Hayes. Friend of the bride, though apparently not close enough for a prime seating assignment. Elias Rowan. He took her hand briefly. Old friend of Jonah's. Clara studied him, bypassing small talk with refreshing directness. You look like you'd rather be anywhere but here. Is it that obvious? Only to another reluctant attendee. She gestured toward the dance floor where couples swayed to the band's rendition of a popular love song. I avoid weddings when possible. Too many promises I've seen broken. Something in her honesty loosened the knot in his chest. I haven't been to one in years. My daughter insisted I come. You have a daughter? Maya. 17, growing so fast, pride crept into his voice unbidden. She's home studying for finals. Single dad? Clara asked, then winced. Sorry, too personal. It's fine. Yes, since she was born. Elias surprised himself by adding, I haven't dated since Maya was little. Easier that way. Easier, maybe. But lonely? The question hung between them, unanswered as the MC announced dinner was about to be served. Throughout the meal, their conversation continued. Tentative at first, then flowing more freely. Unlike the practiced social choreography happening at other tables, they spoke of real things, books that had changed them, places that felt like home, the strange relief of honest conversation with a stranger. When Jonah rose for his toast, Elias prepared to fade back into comfortable anonymity. But then he heard his name. I want to especially thank Elias Rowan, Jonah said, gesturing toward table 9. Heads turned. Most of you don't know that when my company failed 8 years ago, Elias was the one who showed up. No questions, no judgment, just quiet support when I needed it most. Some friends are loud about their loyalty. His is the kind you can build a life on. The room applauded. Elias felt blood rush to his face as he nodded awkwardly, unprepared for recognition. Clara leaned close. You don't disappear as well as you think. The champagne suddenly tasted too sweet. The room too warm. Elias loosened his tie, fighting the urge to flee. I need some air. Without waiting for a response, he rose and made his way toward the French doors that led to the estate's gardens. Outside, the evening air cooled his flushed skin. He breathed deeply, trying to slow his racing heart. I thought you might want company. Clara stood in the doorway. But I can leave you alone if you prefer. Elias hesitated, then shook his head. No, stay. Please. She joined him on the stone path that wound through the garden. Moonlight silvered the flowering shrubs, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn. They walked in companionable silence until they reached a small fountain where water trickled over smooth stones. Does recognition always make you uncomfortable? Clara asked finally. I'm out of practice, Elias admitted. I've spent so long focusing on Maya, on being her father, that I sometimes forget there was a time when I was just, me. And who was that person? Before you became Maya's father? Elias stared into the fountain, watching the play of moonlight on water. Someone with plans. Friends. Ambitions beyond getting through each day. What happened to him? Maya's mother left when she was pregnant. The words came more easily than he expected. Said motherhood wasn't in her plans. After that, I chose invisibility. Figured if I stayed quiet, controlled everything I could, maybe life wouldn't fall apart again. And has that worked? Clara asked softly. It kept us safe. Maya's thrived. He paused. But I think I forgot how to be seen. I understand hiding, Clara said. My last relationship ended badly. Very publicly, very painfully. I've been careful ever since. Careful is safe. Safe isn't always living. They stood side by side, two strangers connected by the shared understanding of retreat. Before they returned to the reception, Clara pulled a business card from her clutch and handed it to him. In case you ever want to continue our conversation. No pressure. Elias hesitated, then pulled out his own card, rarely used outside of professional contexts. I'd like that. Have you ever connected with someone when you least expected it? Share your story in the comments below and don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Steven Love Stories. We'd love to know where in the world you're watching from. Now, let's return to Elias and Clara's unexpected journey. 3 days later, Elias sat in his car outside a small restaurant called Laurel, located halfway between his home in Ashford Ridge and the neighboring town where Clara lived. His hands gripped the steering wheel though the engine was off. Inside his jacket pocket, her business card had been folded and unfolded so many times the creases had softened. He'd texted her yesterday, a simple message asking if she might be free for dinner. Her response had come quickly, Laurel at 7. They have a chocolate soufflé worth risking public interaction for. Now, watching through the window as Clara arrived and spoke with the hostess, Elias found himself wondering what he was doing here. He'd constructed 17 years of careful routine, of predictable days that revolved around work and Maya. One evening of unexpected connection at a wedding didn't change who he was, a man who had forgotten how to exist beyond the roles of father and provider. Yet he found himself exiting the car, straightening his jacket, and walking through Laurel's front door. I was beginning to think you'd changed your mind, Clara said as he approached the table. I considered it, Elias admitted, taking the seat across from her. Honesty. Refreshing. She smiled. Most people would have made an excuse about traffic. Traffic was fine. I was sitting in my car having second thoughts. Clara laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Well, I'm glad first thoughts prevailed. Conversation flowed more easily than either expected, punctuated by awkward pauses that somehow didn't feel uncomfortable. They discovered shared tastes in music, opposing political views, and a mutual love for bad science fiction films. When Elias returned home that night, the house was still lit despite the late hour. Maya sat curled on the living room sofa, textbook open but clearly abandoned in favor of a novel. You're smiling, she observed, looking up from her book. An actual, non-birthday, non-Christmas smile. It was just dinner, he said, hanging his keys on the hook by the door. With the wedding woman. Her name is Clara. Clara, Maya repeated, testing the name. And will you be seeing Clara again? Elias considered deflecting, then remembered the honesty that had flowed so easily between him and Clara. I think so. Yes. Maya's smile was small but satisfied, as though she'd orchestrated this outcome herself. Perhaps, in a way, she had. The next morning, Elias found a note tucked into his coffee mug, "You don't owe me your loneliness. Maya." Simple words that cracked something open inside him. Had he believed that his isolation somehow served his daughter? That by diminishing his own life, he enhanced hers? The thought settled uncomfortably as he prepared for his day. Over the following weeks, Elias and Clara built something neither had planned. Text messages about ordinary moments. Phone calls that stretched into the night. Dinners where they lingered until closing. They developed inside jokes and remembered each other's preferences. Clara always ordered dessert, Elias never took the last bite. He preferred aisle seats. She always chose the booth. Would you like to meet my sister? Clara asked one evening as they walked along the river path after dinner. She's been asking about you. Asking what, exactly? Oh, the usual sisterly interrogation. Who is this man? What are his intentions? Does he have a criminal record? Clara's tone was light, but Elias caught the underlying seriousness. And what have you told her? That you're the man from Table 9. That your intentions are as unclear to you as they are to me. And that if you have a criminal record, you're very discreet about it. Elias laughed. I'd like to meet her. The introduction came the following weekend. Naomi Hayes was Clara's elder by 5 years, with the same direct gaze but a more guarded demeanor. Over lunch at her home, she observed Elias with polite skepticism. She's protective, Clara explained later as they drove away. She's seen me retreat before. Is that what you're doing with me? Retreating? Clara was silent for a long moment. I'm trying not to, she admitted finally. But it's still scary. What scares you? Being wrong again. Trusting the wrong person. Making another public mistake. I'm not exactly a public risk, Elias said gently. I've perfected the art of invisibility, remember? That's part of what scares me. I'm afraid of disappearing with you. Clara stared out the window at the passing scenery. I've spent 3 years rebuilding myself after my last relationship ended. I like who I've become. I don't want to lose that person. Have you ever had to be brave to find love? Comment below about a time you took an emotional risk, and don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Steven Love Stories. We'd love to know where in the world you're watching from, so drop your location in the comments below. Now, let's see how Elias responds to Clara's fears. I don't want you to disappear, Elias said quietly. I think I'm learning how to be visible again because of you. When Clara hesitated about meeting Maya, Elias nearly retreated into old patterns, ending things before they could end themselves, retreating to the safety of his controlled existence. The thought of these two separate parts of his life intersecting filled him with a nameless anxiety. Instead, he found himself saying, "Tell me what you're afraid of." They sat in his car outside her apartment, the engine off, streetlights casting soft shadows across their faces. Rain tapped gently against the windows, creating a cocoon of privacy. I'm afraid of not measuring up, Clara admitted. Maya is the center of your world. What if she doesn't like me? What if she thinks I'm trying to replace her mother? Maya doesn't remember her mother. There's nothing to replace. That almost makes it worse. I'd be the first woman you've introduced her to, wouldn't I? Elias nodded. Yes. That's a lot of pressure. Clara twisted her hands in her lap. What if I disappoint her? Or you? Maya was the one who encouraged me to go to the wedding, Elias said softly. She's the one who left me that note. I think she's been waiting for me to find something for myself. Someone. And if it doesn't work out between us? Have you thought about that? Elias had thought of little else. The risk of disruption, of pain, of loss. The careful life he'd constructed suddenly seemed fragile in the face of these new emotions. I have. And I'm still here. He reached across the console and took her hand. I can't promise how this ends, Clara. But I'd like to find out. They talked honestly that night, choosing patience over escape. They agreed to move slowly, to give Maya and Clara time to know each other without pressure. To allow space for questions and uncertainty. One evening a few weeks later, Clara brought him a small jade plant in a simple ceramic pot. It survives neglect, she said, placing it on his kitchen windowsill, but it thrives with attention. The symbolism wasn't lost on Elias. Like him, the plant had adapted to minimal care. Like him, it had the capacity for growth when nurtured. Maya met Clara for the first time over pizza at their home. Elias had cleaned obsessively that morning, until Maya finally took the vacuum from his hands. Dad, it's just dinner. Not a health inspection. I want everything to be perfect. Perfect is suspicious, Maya said wisely. Lived in is honest. Clara arrived precisely on time, bearing a book for Maya, a rare first edition of the fantasy novel she'd mentioned loving during a phone conversation with Elias. Throughout dinner, Elias watched the two most important people in his world carefully navigate each other. Maya, usually reserved with strangers, asked thoughtful questions about Clara's work. Clara, in turn, showed genuine interest in Maya's college plans without overstepping. "So you restore old books," Maya said, connecting the dots between their professions. "And Dad restores old buildings." "I suppose we both believe in giving things a second life," Clara replied, meeting Elias's gaze across the table. Later, after Clara had gone, Maya helped Elias clear the dishes. "I like her," she said simply. "Yeah. Yeah. She looks at you like you're a whole person. Not just my dad." "Is that good or bad?" Maya rolled her eyes. "Dad. It's good. You are a whole person. It's about time someone reminded you." 6 months into their relationship, Clara invited Elias to accompany her to a publishing conference in the city. It would be their first overnight trip together, a step that both excited and terrified him. "I don't have to go," he said to Maya as she helped him pack. "I can stay home." "Dad." Maya folded a shirt with exaggerated patience. "I'm 17, not 7. I can survive a weekend alone. Besides, Aunt Jen is checking in on me." "I know, but nothing. Go. Have fun. Be an adult who does adult things." That night, in the privacy of their shared hotel room, they crossed another threshold together. Afterward, lying in the quiet darkness with Clara's head on his shoulder, Elias felt a peace he hadn't known in years. "What are you thinking?" Clara asked, her voice drowsy. "That I've been surviving, not thriving," he answered honestly. "Like the jade plant." Clara propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face in the dim light. "And now? Now I'm remembering what it feels like to grow." What's been your experience with trusting again after heartbreak? Share in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this journey with Elias and Clara, please subscribe to Mr. Stephen Love Stories and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Now, let's continue with their story. When Clara hesitated about celebrating her birthday with both her sister and Elias, he recognized the familiar pattern. She was keeping her world separate, just as he had done for so long. "Bring them together," he encouraged gently. "Naomi and I survived our first meeting. I think we can manage a birthday dinner." "It's not just Naomi," Clara admitted. "It's everyone. My friends, my colleagues." "Taking you means introducing you as..." "As what?" Elias asked when she didn't continue. "As someone important to me. Someone who matters." "And that scares you?" "Yes." "Why?" Clara sighed. "Because the last time I publicly claimed someone mattered, he humiliated me. Because everyone warned me about him, and I didn't listen, and I was so spectacularly wrong. I'm not him, Clara. I know that. Logically, I know that." She looked up at him, vulnerability naked in her eyes. But the heart doesn't always listen to logic. The birthday dinner brought together Clara's worlds. Naomi and her husband, colleagues from the publishing house, friends from her writing group. Elias sat beside her at the long table, watching her accept gifts and well wishes. Under the table, she kept her hand in his, as though drawing strength from the connection. When Naomi raised her glass for a toast, Elias felt Clara tense beside him. "To my little sister," Naomi began, "who has shown me what resilience truly means. 3 years ago, you faced public heartbreak with private dignity. You rebuilt your life brick by brick, creating a publishing house that champions overlooked voices. You've become stronger, wiser, and somehow even more stubborn." Gentle laughter rippled around the table. "And now, finally, you've allowed yourself to trust again." She nodded toward Elias. "To Clara, may this year bring you all the joy you deserve." "To Clara," the table echoed. Later, walking to the car under a canopy of stars, Clara stopped suddenly. "Thank you for coming tonight." "Of course. It was your birthday." No, I mean, thank you for being patient. For not pushing. For understanding why this is hard for me. Elias took both her hands in his. We're both learning as we go, Clara. There's no rush. As autumn arrived, painting Ashford Ridge in brilliant color, Elias found himself contemplating the future with growing certainty. He and Clara had fallen into comfortable rhythms. Sunday brunches at her apartment. Wednesday dinner with Maya. Weekend explorations of small towns within driving distance. The jade plant on his windowsill had doubled in size, sprouting new leaves that reached toward the light. On a crisp October evening, Maya found him in the backyard, raking leaves into piles. So, she said, picking up a second rake to help. Are you going to ask her to move in with us? Elias nearly dropped his rake. What makes you think? Dad. Maya's expression was a perfect teenage blend of exasperation and affection. She's here 4 nights a week. Half her books have migrated to our shelves. She has a designated coffee mug. And you'd be okay with that? If she lived here? Maya considered the question seriously. I'm leaving for college next fall. I like knowing you won't be rattling around this house alone. That's not answering the question. Yes, Dad. I would be very okay with it. She attacked a pile of leaves with unnecessary vigor. I like Clara. She makes you happy. You make her happy. It's not complicated. Except it was, Elias thought. Cohabitation meant commitment. It meant dismantling the careful walls he'd built around his and Maya's life. It meant fully stepping into the light. When he broached the subject with Clara the following week, her initial response was silence. I've overwhelmed you, he said, misreading her quiet. We can forget I mentioned it. No, that's not it. Clara shook her head. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm scared. Of what? Of how much I want it. She gave a shaky laugh. Of how easy it would be to say yes. Of building a life with you only to have it collapse. I can't promise it won't, Elias said honestly. I can only promise I'll be there if it does. That will face whatever comes together. Clara moved in gradually over the next month. Books first, then clothes, then the personal treasures that defined her spaces. Maya helped arrange Clara's extensive cookbook collection in the kitchen, integrating them with the few basic volumes Elias had acquired over the years. The adjustment wasn't without challenges. Clara worked from home 2 days a week, disrupting Elias's quiet house routine. He rose early, she stayed up late. She filled spaces with color and texture, he preferred clean lines and minimal decor. They negotiated and compromised, creating a home that reflected both their sensibilities. If you've ever taken a chance on love after thinking it wasn't in the cards for you, share your experience in the comments. And if this story has touched your heart, please subscribe to Mr. Stephen Love Stories and let us know where in the world you're watching from. Now, let's see how Elias and Clara's journey concludes. One weekend, Clara came home to find Elias and Maya transforming the spare room into a home office for her. They'd painted the walls her favorite shade of green, installed built-in bookshelves, and positioned the desk to capture the best light. We know you've been struggling to work at the dining table, Elias explained as he showed her the custom shelving he'd designed. This way you can close the door when you need quiet. Clara stood in the doorway, overwhelmed by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. You did this for me. We did it for all of us, Maya corrected. A happy Clara means a happy household. The weeks leading up to Christmas brought a new challenge when Elias received a call from Jonah, inviting them to a holiday party. Elena and I would love to see you, Jonah said. Bring Maya and Clara. It's been too long. Elias hesitated. Since the wedding, he and Clara had constructed their relationship largely in private. The idea of attending a social event as a couple, of presenting themselves to the wider world, stirred his old anxiety. We don't have to go, Clara said when he mentioned the invitation. If you're not comfortable. Are you comfortable? He countered. Clara considered the question. I think so. Yes. These are your friends. It's different from. She didn't need to finish. Different from her ex, from the public humiliation, from the whispers and pitying glances that had followed her for months. Then we should go, Elias said decisively. All three of us. The holiday party was held at Jonah and Elena's home, a beautifully restored Victorian at the edge of town. Christmas lights twinkled from every eave, and the sound of laughter and music spilled onto the porch as they approached. You okay? Clara squeezed Elias's hand. Yes. And surprisingly, he was. The man who had sat alone at table 9 nearly a year ago now stood tall, Clara's hand in his, Maya beside them. Let's go in. As they prepared to leave, Jonah pulled Elias aside. It's good to see you like this, my friend. Like what? Present. Engaged. Happy. Jonah clapped him on the shoulder. You were always there for everyone else. It's about time you found someone who's there for you. 1 year after they'd met at table 9, Elias attended another gathering, a small dinner party at Naomi's house to celebrate Clara's latest publishing success. Elias chose a seat near the center of the table, no longer seeking the shadows at the edges of rooms. When Clara squeezed his hand beneath the tablecloth, he didn't pull away but returned the gesture with equal warmth. Later that night, as they drove home under a canopy of stars, Clara said, "She's right, you know. You have changed me." How so? You've taught me that safety doesn't have to mean isolation. That trust can be built slowly, brick by brick, like your beautiful buildings. Clara gazed out at the familiar streets of Ashford Ridge. A year ago, I couldn't imagine sharing my life with someone again. Now I can't imagine my life without you in it. When they arrived home, Maya was waiting up for them, curled on the porch swing despite the chill in the air. As Clara went inside to make hot chocolate, Maya watched her father from the swing. You look different now, she said. Different how? Like you believe you deserve to be seen. Elias sat beside his daughter, thinking about the past year's quiet transformation. He'd learned that healing wasn't loud or perfect. It happened in small moments of staying present, of choosing visibility despite fear. I'm still learning, he admitted. Maya leaned her head against his shoulder. Me too, Dad. Me too. As winter deepened, Elias found himself contemplating the future with growing certainty. Maya would leave for college in the fall, beginning her own journey of independence. He and Clara had created a home together, blending their separate lives into something new and stronger. One evening, as snow fell softly outside the windows, Clara found him in his study, examining a small velvet box. What's that? She asked, setting a cup of tea beside him. Elias hesitated only briefly before opening the box to reveal a simple ring with a marquise-cut emerald surrounded by small diamonds. It was my grandmother's. My mother gave it to me years ago, said I might need it someday. Clara's breath caught. Elias. I'm not proposing. Not yet. He closed the box carefully. I know we're still finding our way. But I wanted you to know that I'm thinking about it. That when you're ready, if you're ever ready, this is waiting. Clara sat beside him, taking the box from his hands and opening it again. It's beautiful. She was a remarkable woman. Strong, independent, opinionated. Rather like you, actually. When he finished, she closed the ring box and placed it back in his hand. Keep this safe, she said softly. I'm not ready yet. But I'm getting closer every day. There's no rush, Elias assured her. We have time. Spring arrived with Maya's college acceptance letters. On a warm April evening, they celebrated her decision with a small gathering in the backyard. Later, as twilight settled over the yard and their guests departed, Elias found himself alone with his daughter by the fire pit they'd built together years ago. "You're going to be okay, you know," Maya said, poking at the embers with a stick. "When I leave." "I know." Elias smiled at her perceptiveness. "Though I'll miss you terribly. You've built something good here, Dad. With Clara. With your friends. You're not just my father anymore. I'll always be your father first. Of course." Maya leaned against his shoulder. "But now you're also Clara's partner. Jonah's friend. Your own person. When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best." She smiled up at him. "You taught me how to stand on my own, remember? Now you're finally learning to sit where people can see you." A few weeks later, at another small gathering, Elias found himself reflecting on Maya's words. Clara stood across the lawn, deep in conversation, her laugh carrying on the warm breeze. She caught his eye and smiled, a private communication in a public space. 1 year ago, he would have positioned himself at the edges of this gathering, counting the minutes until he could politely leave. Today, he moved comfortably among the guests, engaged in conversations, present in a way he hadn't been for years. When Clara joined him, slipping her hand into his with familiar ease, he felt a surge of gratitude for the woman who had refused to let him disappear. "Happy?" she asked. "Very." As the evening drew to a close, they found themselves in the same garden where they'd first truly talked, by the fountain where moonlight played on water. "Do you remember what you told me here?" Clara asked. "About choosing invisibility after Maya's mother left?" "I remember. I think we both did that. Chose to become smaller, less visible, to protect ourselves from pain." She turned to face him fully. "But the thing about invisibility is that no one can love what they can't see." Elias took both her hands in his. "And now? Now I think I'm ready." Clara's voice was steady, her eyes clear. "For the ring. For the future. For everything." In the garden where their journey had begun, Elias Rowan, once the invisible man at table 9, knelt before Clara Hayes and offered his grandmother's ring. As she said yes, tears streaming down her face, he understood that true healing comes not from hiding but from allowing ourselves to be fully seen, with all our flaws and fears, by those brave enough to truly look. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Mr. Stephen Love Stories for more transformative journeys that remind us what it means to be truly human. Share in the comments where you're watching from and what part of Elias and Clara's story resonated most with you. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is step out of the shadows and into the light, allowing ourselves to be seen by those who matter most.